All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast. I'm your host, Nick Yerhart, and I have my friend Doug with me today. Now, we met a little over a year ago in Phoenix, Arizona, at a Grant Cardone 10X event, which it was really cool. And Doug, you were actually like one of the first people I actually like talked to down there, because back then, like, I was not confident at all. So like I didn't talk to anybody that I didn't know. But like I don't know, you were very welcoming, and it's like I don't know, there was something about you that was just you were so easy to talk to, and it was great to get to know you. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks, man. I don't hear that very often, that I'm easy to talk to. So
Really?
you made my day already, man. That's awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just remember like it was just like you sat down on the couch and then next to me and just
that's
introduced
right.
yourself, and yeah, we just kind of kept talking. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
that's
cool.
that's true. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Phoenix, Arizona. I live in Vancouver, Canada. For those who are listening or watching. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I was like, oh man, I can't wait to get down to Arizona. I'd driven down because I wanted to see some of the country. And
Hmm.
it was raining like crazy in Vancouver for weeks. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to get down to Phoenix. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be bright. It's going to be beautiful. It's warm. And I get there and it's cloudy, thunderstorms for like 2 days. But yeah, I mean, we connected up there. I think that first day, yeah, we were waiting for things to get started.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just amazed at, like, you, like you showed me something different that day, to be honest,
Hmm.
because I just sat down. I had no idea what to expect from you,
Hmm.
and like you had this confidence about you though that I was like, whoa, that there's some. I hate to say something about this kid's different because we're like literally the same age, but I was like,
Right.
man, this guy's different. Like he's here, he's getting better.
Hmm.
He wants to improve, he wants to speak. I think that's amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's just a testament to who you are. Now you're doing the show. I'm just honored to be here. And yeah, man, thank you for the compliment already. You made my day, so I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, and thank you. Because like me looking back on that time, like I felt like I had no confidence. So
Hmm.
obviously you've seen something where, and that was when I was starting my journey, and, I was, working on it, but like I didn't think I had any confidence in myself at all. But,
Interesting.
it's cool to know that, you've seen that I did. So that's awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, for sure, man.
So, can you tell us what you do?
Yeah,
Like how you spend most of your time?
that's a great question. What do I do? To be honest, I've struggled with this question for much of my life. Um, I'm the kind of guy who I think on the outside looking in, people might look at and say, "Wow, this he does a lot of things." You know, I've been a basketball player. I was terrible in high school, and I wanted to play in the NBA, so I became good enough to get a college basketball scholarship. I went to school. I was good in school. Became a mining engineer because that's what my brother was doing. I actually wanted to go do something else, but I didn't see a path forward economically to really make sense of that decision at the time. And so I decided to
Mm-hmm.
follow my brother's footsteps and become a mining engineer. Um, and so I did that for a while. Unfortunately, that just didn't lead to a good life satisfaction, and so I started doing real estate. I became a real estate investor. I really enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
that. Got good, air quotes for those who are listening to this, good at real estate investing, whatever that means, and used that to catapult me into the next stage of life. But what was interesting along the way is that I was learning more about myself and doing a lot of work in personal and professional development sense from the age of about 25 till now. And, I'm
Mm-hmm.
32 and a half now. So we're like 7.5 years into that, intentionally trying to grow and get better. And what's fascinating about that is that when you ask the question, like, what do you do? In the past, I would have let what I do on a day-to-day basis form my identity, and I would get caught up in how good or, successful I was in what I was doing. So as a basketball
Mm-hmm.
player, when I was in college, I was like, wow, I'm really good. I'm doing this. Well, then I got a knee injury and then I can't play hoops anymore. And I was destroyed, absolutely destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
No confidence, rock bottom. Okay, then I do the real estate investing thing. Had a couple deals that didn't go so well. All of a sudden, I'm not a good real estate investor. I'm crushed. Everything's hurting. And so there's kind of this journey of self-discovery to know that it's just like it's not what you do so much as it is who you are and who you're being or who
Mm-hmm.
you're becoming that really matters. And I know that's so cliche because
Mm-hmm.
you probably heard that from 1,000 different people. I don't know. I'm just another person to say that's really, really true, because what you do can change in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are, who you're being, who you show up as, right? That's more of a consistent element of your character than anything. So what I do
Yeah.
today is I'm full-time looking for a business to acquire, and a
Mm-hmm.
small business. I want to be a small business owner. I've wanted to be one for well, really the past 3 years, and I've built an intentional plan to develop the skills I needed to become one of those people. And now I'm actively looking for that business. So that's what I'm doing. I still invest in real estate. I still do a ton of personal development. I love talking about these kinds of things and sharing these principles with other people and giving back. But yeah, I mean, I'm married. I love my life. I'm getting better. I continue to want to improve. I run marathons. I don't know, man. That's what I do.
There you go. But I honestly, I love that. It's not about what you do; it's about who you are, and that resonates with me so much because over the past year, like when I met you, I was getting into real estate.
Mhm.
I've got nothing to do with real estate now. Like I'm on a totally different course,
Mhm.
and my path is always changing. Because like, oh, I would really like to do that too, along with this. I try to keep everything kind of linked together, so I'm not just like dropping things. But
Mhm.
yeah, so yeah, I really love that you said that because it's so true, and so many people get wrapped up in what they do and not who they are.
Well, and the thing that I
So
learned
yeah.
with that too is that, you know, what you do, what you have, right? These things can be really fleeting. The case in point
Mm-hmm.
for me with basketball, right? For those who would have known me, and I still every once in a while I'll run into somebody from high school who is like, "Hey, Doug, you still playing hoops?" And I'm like, "Man, I was done with hoops like 13 years ago." This is
Mm-hmm.
not a part of my life anymore. But at the time, it
Yep.
was everything. And
Mm-hmm.
whether it was God, whether it was whatever you want to call it, right? I'm not here to make this religious or spiritual. I'm just saying, like, basketball got taken away
Mm-hmm.
from me, for better or
Mm-hmm.
worse, at that moment in life. Like, I remember the game. I got hurt. I had a knee injury, and I thought to myself, this might be the last game, like the last game that matters. And it was. It was the last game that really mattered. And from in an instant, I went from being Doug the basketball guy to Doug just Doug. Like I really had nothing else to like lay my foundation on. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
building a house on sand, right? And then it gets pulled out and your house is gone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then similarly with the mining engineering, right? Same deal. I thought it was the thing and then it wasn't. And then I stopped doing it and all of a sudden, what am I? I'm not employed. I don't have a job. I'm not a somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this has happened multiple times in my life now. and there's kind of this saying, right? Like if you don't learn the lesson, you keep getting the same lesson until you learn it. And this is one of
Yeah.
those lessons that's become more and more so. So, when I look at my life today and I think about some of the amazing things in my life, where I live, my relationship with my wife, even what I'm doing today, this could all get taken away at a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
I have to be comfortable with who I am, not
Mm-hmm.
these external things in my life that could go in an instant. And that's been hard to come to grips with because the material world is so pretty and there's shiny objects and all these cool things that you can do, but if you're not at
Yeah.
your core feeling good, um, you know when these things disappear, then what?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man, it's a really
Exactly.
important lesson.
Yeah, I agree. And I every word you said, I felt that. Like it's
Good.
so true, and it's something that a lot of people don't recognize.
Hmm.
They don't realize it until they do lose something, and then they feel like they're nobody. And
Yeah.
it's like you gotta learn how to lose and win at the same time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do. You know.
Yeah. I like that,
Yeah.
man. I like
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, when was the moment you decided to become an entrepreneur, and why did you make that decision?
Yeah, great question. I think I probably fought being an entrepreneur because so my dad's an entrepreneur. He started his business and they're coming up on their 30-year anniversary. He no longer owns it. He sold it in 2013 and, kind of slowly retired. Um, but like I had this entrepreneurial drive, but I
Mhm,
also have, if you look at my parents, my dad, entrepreneurial, street smart, got C's in schools, last pick on the dodgeball team in gym class, right? Like that kind of guy.
mhm,
Okay, so I got that. And then my mom is like book smart, super intelligent in the school sense, but
mhm,
really conservative. Doesn't take
mhm.
risks, wouldn't jump off a 2-foot ledge if you asked her to, like, right? So these two
Yep.
things are just in my head. And you can
Mhm,
imagine it's like learning how to straddle this horse that wants to
mhm,
tear itself apart in some sense. It's like be conservative, but wait, take calculated risks. And I've had to learn how to ride this thing, which has been
yeah.
really hard at times, right? So when you ask the question, when did I decide I wanted to be an entrepreneur? I don't know the exact answer. I think it really just boiled
Mhm,
down to when did I decide that I was going to uh, learn how to manage the strengths of both sides of my what's going on between my ears and try and
yeah.
minimize the weaknesses of it. That's it. And I would say that
Mhm,
probably started to happen when I was around 25, 26. I started to spend a lot more time really understanding who I was and
mhm,
and answering some more personal development questions, right? That came out of while I was in mining engineering. I was living in this super small town. You're in Minnesota, right? If I remember.
yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm not sure my American geography, but North Dakota is to the
Yep.
west of you,
It's,
east,
yep. Yep.
west,
It's north, west. Yep.
northwest. Okay, so
Yeah.
right above
Yeah.
North Dakota is where I was living. I was living in Saskatchewan,
Okay.
small town. So, anyways,
I actually know exactly where that is.
yeah. Okay,
So
good.
yeah.
Okay, good. So, but
Yeah.
but North Dakota, right? So, if people can picture what North Dakota is like, I'm assuming for most Americans, like a place I don't want to go, right? So, yeah. So,
Exactly.
so
Yep.
this is Saskatchewan, right? And so, but
Yep.
here's the kicker. So I'm there. I'm working at this mining engineering job. I'm at the biggest potash mine in the world. Okay, like we're talking like miles and miles of underground tunnels you would have no idea exist. It's a huge place.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
away from my home. I don't have any friends there. I don't know anybody. And my coworkers, they drink mostly Canadian beer. They watch hockey. They play baseball, and they farm.
Mhm.
And I don't do any of these things. I'm a city boy. Okay. So I have a really hard time making
Yeah.
friends. And I don't have a whole ton of
Mhm.
confidence either because, I'm still 25 figuring myself out. So anyways, what this does for me though is I'm living on this ranch outside of this small town. There's no distractions. And I remember coming to a point where, I was outside in the back. The people that I was living with, they had a hot tub. Really kind of a nice place actually. I'm in the hot tub, and I see the stars. And for people who don't live in the city, you know what it's like when it's a clear night out and you can just see
Mhm.
the cosmos. If you're in the city, you don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what this experience is to feel so small and to know that the world is so vast. So I'm looking up at the
Mhm.
sky, and like my life is just like I'm 25, you know, I'm making good money, more money than my friends typically, right? For that same age time. I own some real estate.
Mhm.
I'm doing all right. And then I was like, man, is this it? Like, is this it? Like, I'm gonna live in a small town and I'm gonna do work underground that nobody's ever going to see, and I'm just gonna get like little incremental raises if I do my job just a little bit better. I was like, no, no, I don't want that.
Mhm.
I don't want that. That
Mhm.
seems like taking, you know, taking Doug, this being, this guy that should be filled with light and sharing stuff with the world, and like taking the mine shaft and going underground and just like no light. There's going to be no light down
Mhm.
here. We're just going to hang out
Mhm.
here and take care of ourselves. And I don't know, something about it was just like really, really, it hit me. It hit me to the core. I was like, no, you gotta, you gotta live into something more. There's something else here for you. Um,
Mhm.
and so I look at that as kind of a moment. But I think what's really important, and that I would like to share with people, is it's not the moment. The moment is motivation. It's inspiration. It's what you do with the moment in the days and the weeks and the months afterwards and the years afterwards that is
Mhm.
really going to determine whether anything changes, right? So
Yep. Right.
that was it for me. It was a moment, but then I started looking for answers, and I
Mhm.
started, reading the books and going to the workshops and, getting around a different kind of person. And all of a sudden, my life started to really change. And it was hard. It
Mhm.
was really hard.
Mhm.
But I have no regrets, because that journey that started at 25 turned into me looking at the real estate investing that I had done and realizing I could
Mhm.
build a business of that. And so I doubled my portfolio as a real estate investor while working full time in this job that I really didn't like. And a year and a half
Mhm.
later, I had started a real estate flipping company with some other partners of mine in Saskatchewan. And all of a sudden, 18 months have gone by from this, moment to
Mhm.
I handed in my notice at work that I was going to leave my job, and I had sold a property, and like I remember just this feeling of like, whoa, okay, that just happened. I had this vision. I wanted to go to this place. I was here,
Mhm.
and then I built this little plan to get there, and just like started knocking off steps, and it happened. It became
Mhm.
reality, and that was in 2019. So like, I retired at
Mhm.
27 with the option to go into the next stage of life and feel a little bit more freedom around things financially, so that I could go take those risks as an entrepreneur. At which point I did, and I had a couple more failures. We could talk about that, but we could also talk about my, you know, coming to realize those skills that I needed to learn. And that's when I started working with the team at Grant Cardone and their office in Canada, which may be of
Mhm.
interest to your listeners. I don't know, but that's really how it started.
Yeah.
But what's cool,
Mhm.
what I like to really drive home is it's not how it started so much as it is
Mhm.
like, what do you do with the spark? People have ideas all
Yeah.
the time, like, oh man, I got to get out of this relationship. I got to change this life. I got to start eating better. Great. You got a spark. You got some energy. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. What happens
What are
tomorrow?
you gonna do?
What are you going to do?
Yep.
What's the
Exactly.
plan? What are you committed to? Because
Mhm.
I guarantee you're going to have another spark tomorrow, and the spark might not be so nice. The spark might be like, oh man,
Mhm.
I'm still a POS, right? Piece of shit,
Yep.
right? Like I'm
Yep.
still
Yeah.
this, I'm still that, and all that noise that's just stuck in your head is going to keep showing up. All right, so
Yeah. And that noise has been, like, it's the hardest thing to work on.
mhm,
That noise in your head. That's something that I help people with, and it takes time,
it
and you
does.
really gotta become aware of yourself and who you are, and more important, who do you want to be?
Mhm,
Because if you focus on the person that you want to be, that negative self-talk or whatever you want to call it, it's going to reduce because you're going to be so hyper-focused on who you want to be versus who you were or who you're worried about you're going to be, like, in a negative way. So yeah, it's very important to try to keep that negative self-talk down and just do your thing.
mhm. 100%, man.
That's awesome.
100%.
That's awesome. So, how has your journey been with Grant Cardone and the team and everything?
Yeah, well, I have kind of a unique perspective on that because as part of my journey to want to become a successful business owner, um, I didn't do it just like, oh, I saw some cool thing on Instagram and like, yeah, entrepreneurship seems cool. I should go do that.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good way to get your face beat in,
Oh yeah.
because being an entrepreneur is challenging. There's some,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of false expectations about there about what's required to be
Hmm.
successful in it. So when I set out with a new plan after I had gotten some losses as an entrepreneur after I left my job in the mining industry, one of the first things I realized I needed to get better at was sales. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, what better place to learn how to get good at sales than to sell sales training for Grant Cardone? I'm like, this guy's online, he's
Hmm.
whether you love him or hate him, and he can be a very polarizing figure. um,
Hmm.
I recognized there was some value behind the paywall, as it were, when it came to the sales side of things. I'd read a couple of his books. Um, I was, buddies or kind of acquaintances with the guy who had started Grant Cardone Canada. So I called him up one day and I said, hey, can I come work for you? Can I get an opportunity here? And, I ended up interviewing and sharing a little bit more about what I wanted to do. And, within a few weeks, I got the job. And so I
Hmm.
go in there and yeah, it was really humbling because here I am. I'm 30 years old. From again outside looking in, I'm a pretty successful guy. I own some real estate. Nobody else in the office owns real estate. Coming in with a little bit more life experience than the typical sales rep that they would bring in, and
Hmm.
I started to learn the game. But it wasn't without its real challenges. There were
Oh yeah.
moments where I wanted to quit for days,
Hmm.
weeks at a time. I didn't make my first sale until my third month. I thought
Hmm.
I was just going to come in and things were just going to happen because it's Grant Cardone and things just happen.
Nope,
No,
it
that's
doesn't
not it.
just
That's not it.
happen.
Right?
No.
I don't know. Maybe down in the States it's different, but on the Canada team, we had to cold call people like all day
Oh
long. We
yeah.
didn't
Hmm.
really get inbound leads. They all they went elsewhere. They went to the Grant Cardone, the other team. So we were
Yeah.
really slamming on doors and trying to find opportunities. And, I learned a ton. I went super deep on the program, Cardone University,
Hmm.
to learn how to do sales. And,
Hmm.
I was the top trained guy in the office. I was staying late. I was doing role play. I was handling objections. I was working on my pitch. I'd be recording things into my phone, listening to it back, listening to my calls at the end of the day. Okay, what went well? What didn't go well? What did I do wrong? What could I do better? I was sitting next to one of the top guys in the office, and I would just hear his calls, and I would hear how he was doing, and just kind of learning through osmosis in that sense.
Hmm.
And yeah, over time I got better. I ended up
Hmm.
being, I think, the top earning first year rep in Grant Cardone Canada history to date at that point, right? So I
Hmm.
I hit the thing. I started
Yeah.
to build up, and so like my journey in that sense is amazing, but it requires commitment. And Grant talks about this, right?
Mhm.
Creativity follows
Yeah.
commitment.
Mhm.
If you're not selling, you're being sold.
Mhm.
If you're not first, you're last. All these different like kind of cute sayings.
Yeah.
They're all true.
They
They're all
are.
true.
You know.
So,
Yeah. One of my favorites is, if you don't like sales, it's because you're not making sales. You know, I
yeah.
I I heard him say that, and I was just like, yeah, that's the truth. Because a lot of people, they don't like sales, and don't get me wrong, sales is hard. But if you take the time, like me and you do, to learn sales, it's it can be very fun. I like enjoy the more I learn.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I echo what you're saying there. Like the more I got to understand the game and the different nuances of
Mhm.
it, and also the fact that, we were selling the product that we were training on a daily basis. So I
Yep.
could see how it was working for me,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
as a salesperson, right, one of the first, rules of selling outside of always, always, always agree with your customer is
Mhm.
like
Yep.
you have to be sold, right? You got to be
Mhm.
sold on you got to be sold on your product, you got to be sold on your company, right? If you're not
Mhm.
sold on those three things, it's going to be really hard to convince somebody else or persuade them to be sold on the same thing. So, when I
Yep.
could see my own success on the program and what I was doing to make it work, it gives you so much more strength to stand upon when you're sitting there with somebody and they're like, oh no, this won't work for me. Or, you're there with the business owner. He's like, yeah, but this won't work for my team. You know how hard it is to find good people out there. And I'd be like sitting next to a guy who literally, you know, packed up his bags from Taiwan, white guy from Saskatchewan, was living in Taiwan for 6 years, couldn't speak English anymore. Like he basically couldn't
Mhm.
speak English. His his
Mhm.
his pacing was off and his words, and he was having so much hard time with
Mhm.
the language. I watched him go from that to
Mhm.
bantering and playing back and forth and handling objections and getting a pitch. Like, don't tell me you can't find good people, right?
Yeah.
Don't tell me this
Mhm.
program doesn't work, because it worked for me. It's
Mhm.
working for the guy next to me. And I meant no disrespect about that guy. It's just like his situation
Mhm.
was he was coming in
Yeah.
from a challenging spot
Oh, yeah.
and he
Yeah.
became great.
Mhm.
It's possible, right? So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I've done a lot of programs with Grant ever since then, because, and the funny thing is, it's not a personal thing, right? Because
Mhm.
Grant's vibe is not really my vibe. It's not,
Yep. Yep.
right? Like he's a little too aggressive for me. I'm a
Yep.
Canadian. We say sorry. We're not as in your face about
Yep.
things. So
Mhm.
it rubbed me the wrong way the first
Mhm.
time I saw it, and sometimes it still kind of does. But
Mhm.
I separate the Grant personality from the sales side of things, and I ask myself, hey, is this somebody I can learn a lot from? And the answer
Mhm.
was unequivocally yes. So I put my
Yeah.
judgment aside and said, okay, that's fine. What can I learn? And
Mhm.
that led me down to some pretty awesome things and some skill development that I needed to step into the next stage of my path on entrepreneurship, if you want to call it that.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome, and that's a skill I wish more people would implement. Is
Mm-hmm.
you know you may not like someone for one thing about them. Don't let that ruin them in your
Mm-hmm.
eyes. Because I hear it all the time. I don't like Grant because of this or anybody else. There's everybody, everybody that every famous person, successful person. There's dirt on all of them. There's something somebody doesn't agree with.
Yeah.
So it's like let's just look past that and look at the good stuff that they do. not the negative.
Yeah,
So yeah.
totally, man. Totally.
So what does my slogan, "Your abilities are infinite," mean to you?
Whew. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Oh yeah.
You're like, yeah, I made it that
I
way.
know.
I made it that way. Your abilities are infinite, man. I think just like I've over the past year, like I've really come to faith, right? Like,
Mhm.
my wife's been a Christian for a number of years. And so I decided that I wanted to devote my life to Christ in November last year. And I'm becoming more and more comfortable talking about it because it was something that was really hard
Mhm.
for me for a long time. I grew up going to church. I went away from it. And then, I came back for a variety of different reasons, which we could be here for an hour on. So I don't need to get into all the
Yeah.
details. But when I think of what your slogan is, right? I truly think of the ability for God to impact people's lives, right? And if you don't want to label a certain religion or a certain church, that's fine, right? I'm not here to do that. But what I am here to say is that, there is something bigger than each of us, right? I
Mhm.
truly believe this. Um, and if you've ever experienced something that goes beyond explanation, you are talking about something that is infinite, right?
Yep.
Something that is impossible or so big you can't even explain it. So when you say your abilities are that way, what that says to me is like you look at some of these things that are inexplainable in the world. Like how is it that, you know, God could call to me in a moment and I would go yes. Then after all the other stuff that I would say, he would give up on me. No, like
Mhm.
that love, that call was infinite. It never stopped, right?
Mhm.
And it called to me and it got me in. And now I'm here. How cool is that? I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I can't
Mhm.
explain it, right? So at the same time, right? Like if you were to look at me 3 years ago, I had no sales skills. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of natural, but like I didn't understand sales process. I didn't
Mhm.
understand how to handle an objection. I didn't know what a pitch was. I didn't know how to close.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to follow up. So
Mhm.
my abilities were very finite. And yet,
Mhm.
through intentional discovery and having a big vision of where I wanted to go, somehow I was able to tap into this, infinite intelligence, this
Yep.
the quantum field, God, right?
Mhm.
And my abilities were able to flow through that energy, right? So without getting all woo here,
Mhm.
it's just recognizing that there's something bigger at play. And when you're able to align yourself with that energy, right? So if it's God, it's prayer, right? If it's infinite intelligence, it's, visualization and meditation, right? I think we're all kind of talking about the same
Mhm.
stuff. When you align
Yeah.
yourself with that source and you feel that tone in your body that says, hey, you should go do this or you shouldn't do this, I pay really close attention to that now because when I
Mhm.
hear those things going on in my life, that tells me that something is pushing me or pulling me in a certain direction. And when I do that, the ability to follow through and do well in whatever that direction is tends to always happen, right? So that's what it means to me is it's something that you can cultivate when you align yourself with what you're being called to do. And
Mhm.
just to wrap a nice bow on that, it's really hard to know or hear that voice that's calling you to go somewhere when you fill your mind with noise or your mind is generating its own noise, right? So I don't think it's a surprise that I was sitting in a hot tub in the middle of nowhere with no distractions and the beautiful sky above me that I finally heard a voice that said, hey man, is this it? Right?
Mhm.
Because
Oh yeah.
because I had
Yep.
no noise. to clear, like, or to muddle up the channel that would have told me that. So I try and be very intentional about that now to make space for that voice to come in. And if there's anything I can share, just, we're probably going to conclude here in a bit, is that, that's valuable time invested. The only way you get there, you got to turn off your phone. You got to go outside for a walk. You got to, take a weekend to yourself. Maybe you got to step into prayer more. Maybe you need to visualize or meditate or just take deep breaths or take a long shower. Like, the more you put junk into your brain, the less likely you're going to be able to actually have this conversation or hear it. And I think the more often we are able to do that, the more we're going to be able to touch into infinity and hear its call and elevate our abilities as a result.
Yeah, wow. That was by far my favorite like definition of what that means to you. Like,
Yes.
It hit me hard because, well, I just I found faith myself. Like you,
Oh, cool.
I went to church as a kid, and I hadn't gone for years until about 5 or 6 months ago. I started going again. And
Wow.
yeah, like so for me, like you saying that, it was like, whoa, like that hit me hard because, like I just got baptized 2 weeks ago.
Really?
So like this is all, yeah,
Dude,
like this
congrats.
is all like, yeah. So like you saying that, it was just like, needed that.
That's
like,
great.
I
Dude.
needed
Wow.
that, like,
Amazing.
yeah. So
my wife and I, no worries, man. You're welcome. More than welcome. My wife and I got married in July last year, and we got baptized in at the end of January. Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy, eh?
So yeah,
How about that?
Yeah. That's wow. Wow.
Unbelievable, man.
But
so cool.
That's infinite right there.
It is.
The possibilities are infinite.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. All right, Doug. Well, where can people find you?
Man, that's a great question. Truly. For real though, part of being able to hear, the call, as I would say, or just getting closer to yourself is tuning out the noise. So I intentionally got off Instagram really a while ago. It was actually probably in September that I stopped being very active on there, just in a consumer sense and even a messaging sense. I do have Instagram, but you probably won't find me there. It's Doug W. Meyers. Feel free to follow, but again, you're not going to see much, at least right now. We'll see what happens. Honestly, email is probably the best, right? I'll share it here. It's doug@gbeventures.ca. GBE stands for Get Better Every Day. It's something that I've always, ever since I was 25 and I started to move towards improving myself. That's always just been something that stuck with me. So I try and get better every day, whatever that looks like. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time, but that's part of the process. I'm probably best be reached by email. You can find me on LinkedIn, Doug Meyers as well. But I'm here to help, here to serve, and I just appreciate you wanting to have me on your show. This has been fun.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's just, it's amazing what you can do.
So
like
true.
Where I'm at now, it's just, and people need to stop and look at that sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when you're feeling down, you're feeling like you're not, doing enough. Stop and look at like, okay, where was I a year ago?
Yeah.
And that really opens up your eyes. Like, all right, I've done a lot. I keep on going.
You bet, man.
So
you bet.
All right, thank you, man. This was great. It was so awesome to have you, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do this again.
I'd like that.
Cool.
Anytime. Thanks so much, Nick.
Cool. Oh, yeah. All right, everyone. remember, your abilities are infinite,